I hadn't thought about Demas in years. Honestly, I assumed he'd moved on, like most people from my high school days. Our friendship back then was a strange blur. Lots of long, intense conversations about death and dreams, even though we were barely 16. But after graduation, he drifted away. Or maybe I had. Either way, it had been nearly a decade since I'd heard his name. So when I got that DM on Instagram, my heart sank before I even opened it. Hey, long time no talk. You still in town? I stared at it for a good minute. Something about it felt wrong. Maybe because he didn't say hi or hope you're well or anything normal. Just that blunt question. Curiosity won over caution. Yeah, still here. Wow, it's been forever. Cool. We should catch up. Got time this week? My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I tried to convince myself it was harmless. We used to be close. Late night walks, confiding secrets we never told anyone else. Maybe he just wanted to reconnect. So I agreed, choosing a local cafe I felt safe in. That evening, I couldn't stop replaying old memories. How he'd once told me he heard voices in the dark. How he claimed something followed him home from an abandoned house we explored. At the time, I thought it was just teenage drama. But now, thinking back, his eyes hadn't looked right when he said it. Almost hollow. I arrived at the cafe first, taking a table near the window. My heart beat faster every time the bell on the door jingled. When he finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. Demas had grown thinner, his skin pale, with dark circles etched so deeply under his eyes they looked bruised. But his smile, too wide, showing too much gum, was the same. Hey, Ayu, he said, sliding into the chair opposite me. You look exactly the same. You too, I lied. He laughed in a low, rasping way. Liar. I look like shit, but it's good to see you. We ordered coffee and tried to catch up. He told me he'd bounced around different jobs, lived in Jakarta for a while, then Bali, then came back here because it felt like home. The way he said it made me shiver, as if the town itself was a living thing that had called him back. Then he leaned forward, dropping his voice. Hey, you remember that old house we snuck into? Near the rice fields? I nodded slowly. How could I forget? It was the last time I'd ever willingly been alone with him. His eyes sparkled in a way that wasn't quite right. I've been going back there. A lot. You should come with me sometime. It misses you. Something twisted in my gut. It misses me? I forced a smile. Maybe. I've got work, though. He just kept smiling, that too wide grin never faltering. Sure. But you should come. It's been waiting. After that coffee, I thought I could just quietly drift away again like last time. Maybe he'd lose interest. But Demas didn't. The next day, he sent me a voice note. His hoarse whisper made my skin crawl. Hey! Just wanted to say I really enjoyed seeing you. It felt right, you know? Like old times. Anyway, hope you're having a good night. I didn't reply. It wasn't mean, just cautious. I convinced myself he'd get the hint. A few evenings later, I was washing dishes when I noticed a shadow outside my kitchen window. It was fleeting, probably just someone walking by on the road. But something made me step outside and check. There was no one, only the faint scent of clove cigarettes, exactly what Demas used to smoke. That night, I barely slept. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Are you awake? I was in your neighborhood. Thought I'd say hi. I didn't respond. I lay there in the dark, clutching my blanket, listening for any sound. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. The next morning, I found something on my doorstep, a tiny bouquet of wildflowers bound with twine. There was no note. My first thought was that maybe it was sweet, even innocent, until I realized these flowers only grew near that abandoned house, the same place he'd been talking about. I didn't want to overreact. I told myself he was just being weird, maybe nostalgic. But deep down, old instincts stirred. When we were teenagers, Demas had done things like this, left odd gifts, whispered about sharing dreams. Back then, I thought it was quirky. Now it felt threatening. That weekend, I went out with some coworkers for drinks, trying to shake off the unease. I stayed later than usual, savoring the safety of company. When I finally drove home, it was close to midnight. My headlights swept across my front gate, and I nearly screamed. Demas was standing there, hands in his pockets, head tilted like he was examining my house. I didn't stop. I drove right past, circled the block twice, and called my friend Lonnie. Her sleepy voice instantly turned sharp when I told her, Stay on the phone with me. Park somewhere crowded. If he tries to follow, call the police, she ordered. When I eventually returned, he was gone. But on my gate, scratched into the paint, was a crude little symbol, like an eye. I finally texted him, my hands shaking. Demas, please don't come to my house. This is too much. He read it immediately. No reply. I didn't sleep at all, lying awake wondering if he was outside, watching. After that last message, Demas stopped texting. At first, it was a relief. I started to believe he'd gotten the message and finally moved on. But then new, stranger things began. The first was the whispering. It started one night just as I was drifting off, that fragile moment between waking and sleep. I thought it was my mind replaying memories, except it was saying things I'd never heard. Low, urgent words in Javanese dialects I barely understood, punctuated by my own name. Ayu, Pulang, Sini. I jolted awake, heart thundering, straining to hear more. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge. A few nights later, it happened again. This time, I clearly heard Demas's voice. It's waiting for you. Just say yes. I sat up, clutching my phone, ready to dial someone, anyone. But it was 2:37 a.m. Who could I call? I curled up under my blanket like a terrified child. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep. In the morning, I found muddy footprints on my porch. Bare feet, long, narrow toes. The prints trailed right up to my front door and stopped. My stomach twisted. I wanted to believe it was a prank, kids messing around. But who would walk barefoot in the mud just to frighten me? I started researching old folklore, desperate for an explanation. The house we'd broken into all those years ago was rumored to belong to a dukin, an old shaman who vanished under mysterious circumstances. Locals said he'd done dark rituals that left something behind. I'd always laughed it off. Now I wasn't so sure. That same day, I ran into Bu Lastri, an elderly neighbor who'd lived on my street forever. She caught my arm, eyes wide. Ayu, dear, who was that young man by your gate the other night? The one with the black eyes? She asked. My mouth went dry. Black eyes? She nodded, looking unsettled. Like the middle was all big. No white. Be careful. Some people, they come back different. I thanked her and hurried home, pulse racing. Was she seeing things, or was I missing something horrifyingly real? That night, I tried to distract myself by watching TV until I fell asleep on the couch. Sometime after midnight, a loud knock rattled my door. My heart leapt. I crept to the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty porch. But when I turned around, there was a shape by the hallway. Tall, thin, almost blending into the darkness. I blinked hard and it was gone. My breath shuddered out of me. Was I losing my mind? I couldn't keep living like this, jumping at shadows, waking up drenched in sweat from nightmares where Demas stood at the foot of my bed, whispering in a language I didn't know. I decided to confront him. If he was playing some sick joke, I needed it to end. I texted him one afternoon. Can we talk? Somewhere public? Tomorrow? His reply was immediate. Of course. I've been waiting for you to come around. We met at the same cafe as before. He looked worse, if that was possible. Clothes hanging off him, eyes ringed in red. But the way he smiled at me, it was like he was delighted. Hungry. Ayu, he breathed, reaching across the table. I pulled my hands back. We need to stop this. Whatever it is you're doing, coming to my house, leaving things, the footprints. I want it to end. He tilted his head, confused, almost childlike. I didn't leave anything at your house. Don't lie to me, Demas. My neighbor saw you. With eyes. He leaned forward abruptly, cutting me off. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper. That wasn't me. I stared at him. The way he said it made the hair on my arms stand up. He ran his hands through his greasy hair, agitated. I thought, if I brought you back there, maybe it would stop. It doesn't want me, Ayu. It wants you. My mouth went dry. What wants me? The thing in the house. The thing we woke up that night. It's been with me ever since, following me, talking to me. It says your name, over and over. I thought, if you came, it would let me go. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was he seriously blaming this on some ghost story? But as I looked at him, truly looked, I saw how haunted he was. His skin was sallow, his nails dirty and cracked, his pupils strangely wide even in the bright cafe light. A tremor passed through him like something moved under his skin. You're sick, I whispered. You need help. His eyes met mine, and for a terrifying moment, they did look all wrong. Black swallowing up any white. Then he blinked, and it was gone. "Please," he rasped. "If you don't come, it'll come to you anyway. It already has. Hasn't it?" A cold sweat broke out on my neck. The whispers, the figure in my hall, the footprints. I stood abruptly. "Stay away from me, Dimas. If you come near my house again, I'll call the police." He didn't follow me out, but as I left, I heard him softly say behind me, "It'll find you, IU. One way or another." The thing that waited after meeting Dimas, I couldn't sleep. Every night, the air in my house felt heavier, like it was pressing down on me. The whispers grew clearer, threading through the walls. They didn't sound entirely human. Too breathy, too layered, like many voices speaking at once. "IU, come back. Come home." I stopped turning off the lights. I left my TV on low, hoping the noise would drown out whatever was calling me. It didn't. 2 nights later, I awoke to the sound of my front door creaking open. My chest seized. I knew I'd locked it. I lay perfectly still, straining to listen. Soft, dragging footsteps moved through my living room, pausing at each doorway, as if searching. A faint, rotten smell drifted down the hall, wet earth and something sour, like spoiled milk. I bit down on my hand to keep from sobbing. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom. The door was ajar, just a crack. I stared at that gap, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. The door inched open. A shadow spilled across the floor, tall and distorted. Then a long, skeletal hand pushed through, fingers too many, bending at odd joints. I bolted upright and screamed. The thing slipped inside, its body impossibly thin, head cocked too far to the side. Its skin was grayish, slick, like it had been left in a swamp. Where its eyes should have been were deep pits of swirling black. It opened its mouth, a dark cavern ringed with teeth that weren't quite teeth, more like splinters of bone, and spoke with all the voices I'd heard for weeks. "You left us there. IU, you belong." I backed against the wall, shaking my head violently. No, I didn't. I was just a kid. I didn't do anything." The thing glided closer. My legs refused to move. Its hand stretched out, and when it touched my shoulder, it burned ice cold into my skin. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the nightmare. My front door slammed against the wall. Dimas burst in, holding a small jar smeared with what looked like blood. He was chanting under his breath, words that twisted my stomach just to hear. The thing screeched, a piercing metallic wail, and recoiled. Dimas flung the jar at it. It shattered, and a foul-smelling vapor filled the room. The entity writhed, its form fracturing, like smoke breaking apart. "Get back!" Dimas shouted. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me into the living room. The thing followed, screaming, until it hit the threshold, where it jerked to a stop as if an invisible wall barred it. It clawed at the air, those endless fingers twitching. Then it collapsed in on itself, sucked into a thin line of darkness that split the air, and was gone. I fell to my knees, sobbing. Dimas sank beside me, equally exhausted. "It won't stop trying," he rasped. "But that buys us time. We have to finish this where it started. At the house." I didn't want to go back there. Every cell in my body rebelled at the thought. But Dimas was right. It wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted. So 3 nights later, armed with flashlights, salt, and the last of whatever ritual Dimas had cobbled together from old books and local folklore, we returned to the rotting house by the rice fields. It was exactly as I remembered, only worse. The air felt thick and greasy, clogging my throat. Every window gaped like a wound. The front door stood open, waiting. I hesitated on the threshold, my breath misting though the night wasn't cold. "Don't let it separate us," Dimas whispered. His hand clamped around mine, trembling. "It'll try." Inside, the house was dark but alive with a faint skittering, as if insects scuttled just out of sight. The walls were streaked with something dark, mold or old blood. It was impossible to tell. We reached the main room where we'd once dared each other to explore as reckless teenagers. The floor was cracked, exposing damp earth. In the center, a shallow pit had formed, half collapsed. Dimas took out a handful of nails bound with red thread, muttering words that hurt to hear. He scattered them around the pit. Then he looked at me, eyes hollow. "It wants you to step in. If you do, I think it'll finish." My legs turned to water. And then what? It drags me under? It wants acknowledgement. A debt paid. Just stand there long enough. I'll handle the rest. I didn't trust him, but I also didn't see any other choice. So heart racing, I stepped carefully into the shallow pit. The ground felt strangely warm under my feet. Immediately, a low moaning rose up around me. Voices swirling, whispering my name, whispering home, home, home. Shapes moved at the edges of the room, long and thin, unfurling from the walls. The air pressed in tight. I thought of my parents, my quiet house, mornings with coffee and birdsong, things I might never see again. Tears slid down my face. Demas began chanting louder. A wind whipped through the room, though outside the night was still. The shadows shrieked, converging on me. Something icy clawed at my ankles. Then a blinding light burst from the circle of nails. The shadows shrieked again, a sound like shattering glass, and tore away from me, swirling up toward the ceiling before vanishing into cracks in the wood. Suddenly, it was silent. The house seemed to sigh, exhaling centuries of tension. The floor under my feet felt cool again. I stumbled out of the pit, and Demas caught me. "It's done," he whispered, voice breaking. "You're free. It's over." We walked out together under a vast, quiet sky. When I reached home that night for the first time in weeks, there were no whispers. No shadows moved where they shouldn't. Epilogue. Months later, I moved to a small apartment closer to my job, leaving the nightmares behind. Sometimes I still think I hear Demas's voice on the wind, but then it's just the rustling of leaves. I've started planting flowers by my window. They bloom bright, untouched by anything from that awful house. At last, I sleep peacefully and dream only of light.